Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's been a minute. I am Jenn. This is Adarian. We are here with Let Me Introduce You, podcast number 22. And
We only
today
got to 22. We stalled
we
out.
we stalled out because there were like the holidays, and you got a job. I don't know. It's been busy. Thanks. But we're back, which is what matters. So we are
Right.
talking about, let's see if I can get this right. Q angles, pelvic floor, anus, and glutes.
Yeah, we can talk about all that. We can cover it with just one thing. So, being that you told me the other day that I said something about Q angles, you said that about pelvic floor, and I was like, Q angles covers pelvic floor. So
That'll take care of that. But
yeah,
before we get into all of that, I should explain what a Q angle is. So a
yes,
Q angle is also known as the quadriceps angle. That's how it's also referred. It's defined as the angle formed between the quadriceps muscle and the patella tendon. So can you explain that a little bit?
yeah, but we didn't do it that way. We would take a picture to understand it. But basically, at the top of your hip bone, put a finger at the top of your hip bone,
Yep.
and you can draw a line straight to the center of your kneecap, patella tendon.
Yes.
Now, if you this becomes the fun part. You can lift your knee up, you know, and you can extend the knee out. Right.
Yep.
Now do the same thing. This time, go from the top of the hip to the inside of the knee.
Okay.
And actually got to go like more down towards the tibia than anything else.
Right.
And then you want to just swing your leg back and forth, and you'll see where that runs to, and why that's because the sartorius muscle you got to deal with more than anything else. Not really the quad. They can say the quad muscle, but it's really the sartorius muscle that you got to deal with on that process.
Right. So when you set your Q angle, you're basically setting this, for lack of a better word, alignment between your hip and your shin, right?
Right. Right.
Which is going to encompass
yeah.
your foot too.
Yeah, it encompasses everything between the foot, foot, pelvic floor, anus. Everybody's incorporating this process now.
And what's interesting to me about this is we're looking at it from like a movement standpoint. Like, how can you use this to facilitate better performance or better movement in terms of whatever you're doing, right?
Right.
This
right.
was initially like the first person who mentioned this in a research paper was a researcher in 1964 who was studying dislocations of the kneecap.
Yeah.
And he was looking at how the Q angle maybe predisposes someone to having more dislocations or less dislocations.
Right. So, but I figured too, while we at this, we have to, because I get on people about redefining stuff without changing stuff,
Right.
So we're gonna call it the S angle,
which is good. The sartorius angle.
Yeah, we can call it sartorius angle instead of the Q angle, and that will clear up the difference.
Now, what about the fact that some people don't have a sartorius?
Well, I mean, some people don't have them. Some people connect in different places. It's and that's all going to affect how things work and everything, and what it can do, what you can't do, things like that. Now, that would be an interesting study to figure out, the athletic potential of those with and those without.
To see if it's different.
Yeah. I mean, we looked at that picture of Bob Beamon. I swear that's a sartorius. That thing is on,
It's kind of medial though, and it was really big. Like I was like, if that is the sartorius, that is a meaty sartorius.
Yeah, but once again, these things have different. They don't all run to the same place, so
right.
It could be that way. If it's that way, it gives you what, a short alignment pull.
Yep.
On the tibia coming. So it just once you start looking at the different things, you go, oh, okay, I can see how this is working. And I guess we would have to actually like what a sartorius does. Because it crosses two hip joints, it crosses two joints.
Right.
And it does and doesn't. It does and doesn't just by the way it's designed. But we can say across the hip joint because it goes up to the top of the hip bone and everything. Right. But what tends to happen in things like this here, and especially look at this muscle, the way it's winding, if you lift your leg up, it's going to shorten.
Like that?
Yeah.
So if I do that.
Yeah, it's going to shorten.
Shorten.
And
Yeah,
what's going to stress it out is the weight of the leg.
that makes sense. Okay.
Because technically, you think that as it shortens and folds up, it wouldn't hold, but it's the weight of the leg that is holding.
Right.
So then once you get there, you could rotate in, but what it allows you to do now is do two things. It's going to hold the weight of the leg, and then it allows you to pull a tibia back.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what it gives you. It gives you a 2-for-1. Lift the leg, pull the tibia back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like I said, with most muscles that crosses like that, one of them will give slack as one, but this can shorten at two ends. That's the cool thing about it. It can shorten at both ends. Most of the time, if you go like with the quad, one is going to shorten, one is going to lengthen.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And so if we're thinking about this from like setting the Q angle, which is how it's often referred to, we're going to set the S angle though, because we're changing the term.
Yeah.
How would you go about doing that? And how is that going to influence things like the pelvic floor and like your access to your transverse arch and all of that?
Well, one of the things that it gives is this here. So when you talk about the Q angle and what's going to happen is this here. Think about the knee going inside. A lot of times people, the knee goes inside. So if the knee goes inside, it's actually going to rotate the tibia in accordance with what the femur is doing.
Yes.
So it keeps things in alignment. The other part too is that when the leg lifts up and you're running, it's going to pull tibia back as the thigh rises.
Okay.
So and that's usually what will make you like fast is to do both of those. So as the thigh rises, also the ability to flex the tibia up underneath you. And if you're jumping, you're doing repeated jumps. That's a movement they will take part in, things like that. The beauty of it is, it's supposed to be a weak muscle, and it can be a weak muscle. Why? Because it's only acting on against air. It's never going to act against the ground.
Right.
So you get into a couple things like that, and just the unique things that it can do that most people wouldn't think about. Most people just think about it's going to just, do this and do, but it gives you a 1-2 punch. And that's probably the biggest value is that 1-2 punch when it comes to, running and jumping and cycling the legs around, things like that. The femur can drop down and it can hold this position, or it can let the leg out. So it got a couple of things it could do.
Now on the ground, if we're talking about like conditioning, like say you're doing like a split stance drill.
Yeah.
If you pay attention to your setup in regards to this idea of the hip to that inside of the knee, like where that runs, right? And you set yourself up accordingly to that, then that can also make your ground stuff a little more effective, even though it's working on a different muscle, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to stand up, I know people won't be able to see you unless they watch this. But if you stand up, so one of the things like that can happen is this here. Say you can do a forward lunge. Say you can do a lunge. Okay. So most people do a lunge. That's how they're gonna do a lunge.
Right.
They're gonna step forward, right? Now this time, go ahead and squat down first.
Okay.
Now do the lunge. Okay. Now as you do it, this time as you do the lunge portion, go ahead and pull the tibia towards the thigh.
Okay.
So you're steady now.
Yeah, way steadier.
So that's the value of the bang for the buck of the movement. Is that steadiness when you get to that next step.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
Steadiness, but it has to be worked in that sequence.
Right.
If you did the same thing and swung your leg forward, it's not the same sequence. But if you're in a squatted sequence, it works different because squat is going to take the weight of the thigh. It's going to take the weight of the leg, and then it's going to help you move it based on moving the tibia, not moving the leg anymore, but just move the tibia.
Which is going to be more representative of sports in general, right? Or of athletic movement in general.
Right. Same thing. You see those guys in track meets where they jump up. That's sartorius right there, because they jump up, knees are up, and then they pull. Basically, all at that point in time, you just pull the tibia to the thigh.
Okay, that makes sense.
So even this here, you got a jump rope? No?
I don't have a jump rope. I can pretend to jump rope though.
Okay, let's pretend to jump rope. Let's pretend to jump rope. And think about this how most time people learn to jump rope and then they get talked out of it. So that's how people, now do double bouncies.
Oh, wait.
Because if you do double bouncies, most time with double bouncies, what do? You pull your heels up, which is the sartorius actually pulling.
Oh, you know what's funny is I went through a phase where I was doing a lot of jump roping in my programming, and I prefer double bouncies, but I thought I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, most people,
So
yeah,
I
they take it out.
switched.
And so then you make it a different movement pattern. But most people bounce and then they pull, bounce, pull, bounce, pull, bounce, pull, bounce. So it
Got it.
becomes a different movement pattern and everything. So we have this thing that's working and then we stop it from working.
Okay.
So you got things like that. What it doesn't do is it doesn't work well uh, if like you are like on your back.
Oh, so if I do like some sort of on my back, legs up situation,
Yeah,
this isn't going to
yeah.
be super effective for the sartorius.
Right.
Okay.
Because gravity is going to be a little bit more for it at that point in time. People kick up, but what you could do, go ahead and lay your back again, and what you could do, and this becomes like I said, and the biggest thing because there's no weight on it.
Right.
See, there's no weight on the first part, which makes the second part hard.
Yeah.
So now what you can do is put your hand on left or right knee, it doesn't matter, and push
Yep.
the knees down. As you push the knees down, now go ahead and pull the tibia towards the thigh.
Oh, that's cool.
Pull it more, pull, yeah, and keep pushing down as
Okay.
you see. Now you can get them to work.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
They need a load, and
And
usually the leg itself is the load.
that makes sense. And that actually connects everything all the way up into your core, for
Right,
lack of a better word.
right. Which most people, like I said, if you lay on your back, it's not loaded. It doesn't carry, so that tension of the load is not there, which makes it
Yeah.
hard for the other part to work.
Oh, okay.
So it's things like that. But watch this. Now you really want to have some fun.
Of course.
Our favorite friend, hip thrust. Our favorite friend, hip thrust. Watch this.
Oh
This gonna be fun.
yeah.
So go
Okay.
lay on your back again.
All right. We all know how much I love the hip thrust. All right, on my back.
So just do a hip thrust. Okay. Now go ahead. Now this time, go ahead and pull your heels a little bit closer to you, and push your
Actually
hands
walk
on your
them.
push your hands on your thigh again.
Okay.
Now this time, but yeah, as you do the hip thrust, go ahead and pull the heels towards you as you raise your hips up. So push on your thigh, pull. There you go.
Yeah, which is very crampy in my hamstrings. I feel that.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that's another way just to get them engaged.
That makes sense.
So yeah, it's just one more way because once they feel the weight, you know, you get a different movement versus without that load on them. Because without the load on them, then the quads want to take over.
Right.
And so it becomes more of a quad exercise than a. So yeah, so there's a few things to think about.
That makes sense. Now, how does this all relate to the pelvic floor?
Okay, so back on your back again.
Okay. We know
So,
it's show and tell. So those of you, those of you
yeah,
listening, you can totally try all this.
yeah. So feet off the ground. Okay. Now push your hands on your thighs and push your thighs away. Now go ahead, left side, right side of pelvic floor. Go ahead and pedal it like a bicycle.
Say that one more time.
So pedal your pelvic floor like you was pedaling a bicycle, left and right side.
Okay.
That's pelvic floor. So that's how you would engage it that way. So when you run, it'd be the same thing. But you need that load.
Oh, and you can feel it more acutely when you run, actually, because you have the load naturally.
Have the load, yes.
But you could do the same thing like standing. If you go back to like that squatted position, lunging a foot forward, you could pedal the pelvic floor to do the stepping of the foot forward, right?
Or you can also, it would let you stand up this time. And so same thing, just same thing. Put your hands on your go ahead and squat down, put your hands on your thighs. There you go. As you push down on your knees, now go ahead and use the pelvic floor again because they're loaded. So yeah, you can just pedal with your pelvic floor. You'll keep walking.
Okay.
So that load there gives you the sensation.
That's interesting too, because again, it works all the way up into for people that
Yeah,
like that
yeah,
sensation
yeah.
up into your abdominals.
So it's a loaded type thing. It's a tension type thing, you know. And so yeah, so if you land on your back or something like that, it doesn't work because it doesn't have the load to put tension upon it.
Right. But then conversely, you can do like hands and knees. You'd have load that way.
Yeah, you put and you put a load on it that way, you know, things like that. Yes.
Yeah.
So now think about the one stretch that everybody does, you know, when they pull a knee to their chest.
So like figure 4. That one?
No, just take your foot, not the figure 4, just straight, you know, knee hugs, basic knee hugs.
Oh, basic knee hug. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a knee hug, right?
Yes.
So now it doesn't work again. And from this position here, pelvic floor, nobody will work from this position.
No, it's
But
very
watch
passive.
this. Watch this. Go ahead and take your hand and push your knee outward.
Okay.
No, out. Put your hand on the inside. Take your left hand, put it on the inside, and push it out.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you can go ahead and work that right pelvic floor muscle.
Oh yeah, you can. Okay. Huh.
Because it's also loaded that way again now.
And this translates to again like running and jumping how?
Running. Well, because that's the whole thing about it. A lot of times people think these straight line movements, but at the same time, you remember this. It has to be loaded first, to do the second part of the task. So it has 2 tasks, and the main task is moving the tibia.
Right.
But the first part of that is it must feel the weight of the femur to do the second task.
Which I think people miss.
Yeah, people
That
miss.
part.
Yeah. People miss that part. Even if you're running, you know, one thing you can do with it too is, you know, is if you can think about, if you're going to lift it up, think about screwing the muscle, rotating the muscle back into you to get the load, and then pull the tibia. So we'll do one more standing up exercise. And you got to visualize that this muscle is running diagonal. So when you got to think about this muscle being twisted.
We're talking about the sartorius, right?
Yeah. So as you lift up your right leg, think about that muscle being twisted.
Okay.
So now as you do that, now go ahead and pull the tibia back towards the femur. As you continue to lift it, and that becomes what you want to deal with. That's how you want to do that. Now, as a female, you're going to twist yours and pull your knee towards the inside.
Right.
Even more than that. So you're talking about, go ahead and drop your leg. Your right knee or your left knee should cross over your right knee. That's how far you want to go over with it. There you go. See?
Which actually begs or leads into my next question, because males and females have different, again, we're calling it S angle, different S angles.
Yeah, and the male would go outside. The knees that are coming in would go out.
And this is a function of the width of the pelvis, correct?
It's also a function of balance.
Okay.
How you so stand up again? Yeah, people just gonna have to watch this. They don't, you know, they just gonna have to watch it. So it's also a function of balance. So because you want to think about your heel. See, right now your heels are directly underneath each hip bone in a sense.
Yes.
And this is where the anus comes in at. Make sure each heel is underneath the anus.
Okay.
So that becomes a thing of balance. Now, go ahead and pick up one leg. So when you pick yours up, but take it inside. Now put it back down. When you initially lift it, knees gonna go across each other. There you go. See, that's your movement.
Which does feel like I get way more space that way.
Yeah, and when it comes back down, it's gonna come right back down to that center spot.
Right underneath the anus again, right?
Right underneath the anus again, yeah. Especially if you
so,
move forward or move backwards, it's going to come right back down to that spot.
okay.
So, and you've
It's an
seen that
interesting
before, but
pedaling.
what? You see that with a lot of what? Ballet.
Female runners.
Ballet though too. Think about
Oh,
a ballet dancer.
ballet.
Whether they take it in, they take it out. They take it in, they take it out.
It's true.
So, and then they do all the other stuff they're gonna do and everything like that. So yes, but yeah, you see it in female runners too. You see it in a lot of, but that becomes the pattern of where it's gonna go. But it comes down to a balance issue.
So a lot of times what people are claiming is like knee valgus that's happening in the air, right? Like a lot of times people will say the knee is like cycling in towards
Yeah,
midline. It's not good, all of this. But
right.
that's actually inaccurate, correct?
Well, no, it's inaccurate. The other part too is that people what people tend to do is they take a still photo of something and they call
Right.
that bad, but they didn't see the whole movement happen. So as you were doing that, you could see that you didn't wobble. The leg went where it had to go without you wobbling back and forth. Now watch this stand up one more time. People just have to watch this. And we're gonna do what people normally do. So keep your feet like you have them before, straight underneath your hips. And that's what people say, feet underneath hips, when it should be heel underneath anus. So now
Right.
go ahead and pick up either the left leg or right leg, doesn't matter. And see your body's trying to balance you out right now.
Yeah.
So now go ahead and pull the knee in across the body, same thing as you did before, and see it becomes difficult
It's way harder than with
because you're not balanced anymore.
right than with that.
Yeah.
And it is so interesting because so many athletic movements of a variety of types. I mean, like even gymnastics or like you said, dance, and then running and jumping, you see this natural rotation of the heels in towards midline.
Right. You see it, and people tell you straighten your feet out.
Right. And then we're taught to squat like with our feet pointing straight ahead.
Right.
And we're taught to lunge with our feet pointing straight ahead.
Straight ahead. Yeah. And so you messed up the Q angle. You messed up the ankles. You messed up the angles. You messed up so many things. It's crazy.
Right.
So that becomes part of just understanding the base setup and how you get, and then all of a sudden you wonder why your pelvic floor is not working. Well, if your base gets too wide, pelvic floor can't work.
Oh, of course, because then
If
you
you're
don't
not
have access to it because of levers.
right, if you're not balanced, pelvic floor doesn't work.
Right.
So that's even funny. Like when somebody lays on the ground and says they're working their pelvic floor, not really.
There's not enough load.
There's not enough load on the muscle that you need to make this work. So yeah, but a lot of people think because their legs are doing clamshells, that's pelvic floor. That's not pelvic floor.
Right.
That's just.
And it's this idea that the glutes feed into the pelvic floor.
So yeah, and yeah, they don't. What's funny is watch it. This become funny. So we're gonna have to stand up again. So people just gonna have to watch this. It's gonna be on audio. So this becomes once again, a glute is a loaded pressurized muscle.
Right.
So now, if you understand Q angles, this gets easier, or S angle. So we're gonna go with S angle. So stand like you're standing. So it kind of turns sideways to get the visual effect. Okay. Now, put your hand on your glute. So left hand on your left glute. Okay. Go ahead and grab your left glute. Okay. Now, go ahead and squat down on that left leg. Tell me when you feel your glute. Tell me when you feel it. Okay, now watch this. Now go ahead and stand up again. And go ahead and turn your heel in. And lift it slightly off the ground. Now go ahead and tell me when you feel that left glute.
It's funny because it turns on way sooner. I feel it right there.
Way is on already to hold you.
Yeah.
So, but think about that. Think about that muscle wants to hold you, not expand you.
Yes.
And people use it as an expansion muscle when it's not an expansion muscle.
Everyone teaches that femoral extension and rotation.
Yeah, it's I want to hold you here muscle, not I want to expand you out muscle.
Right.
So that's the thing about it. And so a lot of times people, I can't feel my glutes. Yeah, because you're not within line of your S angle. And if you
Right.
understand S angle, it's easy to understand glutes. It's easy to understand, how to get these things to work.
Yeah.
So and then that becomes back to what we're really trying to move. Split the body in half. I got the left half manus and the right half anus.
Right.
And so that's where my heels are projected towards left half, right half,
Yes. Which
versus the heels.
coincides with the pelvic floor too.
Right. Coincides the pelvic floor instead of the foot sitting underneath. It wants to sit inside.
This is good. We actually had a question on our most recent newsletter about Q angles from a yoga teacher because a lot of yoga postures are taught with the feet pointing straight ahead.
Yeah.
And she said
Yeah.
it never has felt good to her. So she's, been trying to play with her stance, but she felt like understanding this would really help her.
Yeah. And so that becomes a thing. It becomes a balance and stability issue. And then who's going to work and how it's going to work. And like I said, people say it's a weak muscle. It didn't have to be strong enough. And that's where we get these funny words from. It's a weak muscle. It didn't have to be strong in the first place. All it wants to do is hold weight. It's just a tension muscle. It wants to hold weight. So they talk about an anchor. That becomes that's an anchor muscle. And we're going to anchor you here. And then we're going to make this other part work.
Well, and I feel like often biarticular joint muscles are anchor muscles, aren't they?
Yeah, most part. Yeah.
Because they're anchoring everything together, which allows everything else to move.
Right. And basically, remember what anchor is slowing things down. So it's going to slow something down so something can move.
Yeah.
But and that's the part of it. Like we didn't really get a whole lot of pitch shot and roll today. We could have, but we just didn't get into the words. But a lot of it's based on, like I said, it really wants to, yaw the thigh pitches.
Yep, that makes perfect sense.
And then once that happens, it's gonna, pitch the tibia. And that's why a lot of times you see people as they run, the tibia goes out you see the tibia and the foot goes outside the body, but they didn't see how it crossed underneath the anus to go outside, back to the anus, outside, back to the anus.
Yep.
Because they're not watching the heel, they're watching toes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And even for like a handstand kick up, if you think about trying to get the heel over the anus as you're kicking up, it is crazy how that transfers your weight so much faster and you get into that more vertical position very quickly.
Right. So, but yeah, that's what it becomes down to is a balance issue, stability issue, and split the body in two halves, and each half is now supported. If I go to one leg, each half is still supported.
Right.
So, and that's what we see a lot of people do when they're on one leg wobbling, because the body's trying to find that angle.
Right.
So yeah.
All right. This was good. I think this is a lot for people to think about, I hope. And as always, if you have any questions, just hit us up. But before we sign off, we have some stuff coming up.
Well, yeah, we have Amsterdam coming up, not Amsterdam, but Netherlands retreat. We got a name for it. Netherlands retreat. 3 cities: Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague.
Yep.
And then we have, I'm already in July or June or July. June we're in Vancouver.
June we're in Vancouver.
In June or July we in LA at
July
Idea.
we're in LA at Idea.
Idea, yeah. And then we have some coming up in March. Are we doing something in March? Or did
not that I'm aware of. That got pushed.
Okay, so we got pushed back.
We might be doing Portland in March. We haven't come up with a date yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it was. So yeah. So lots of stuff, and the book is about due.
The books, we are getting very close, which is exciting.
Yeah. Remember, did you write down the title?
I did. It's stored because we're getting ready to move, but I have it somewhere. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head.
So yeah, so a few things are going on and everything. So and then we actually got to start on the third book, which would be Q angles and feet. So
yeah, exactly.
Pelvic floor Q angles and feet.
This got bigger than it was initially. All listening, it was initially pelvic floor and feet. So
Yeah, it's not gonna change past that. Q angles, pelvic floor, and feet. That's gonna.
There we go.
That's gonna be the thrust of it and everything. So, and the course is up for Biomechanics Movement Summit.
Yes. So if you missed the Biomechanics Movement Summit Live, you're like, what are these people talking about? What are they like in person? You can totally check that out. And there's also a pelvic floor course on the website as well.
Yes.
So
Yes. Pelvic floor course on the website as well. Yes. So
resources.
lots of things to get into. Lots of things to get into.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, until next time. So we'll be back on a regular basis now that my schedule and Adarian's schedule has meshed again. And we look forward to it. Thanks, everybody.